My name is Tammy Williams, and I'm an Aboriginal entrepreneur, a graphic designer, and a strategic and business consultant. First, I'd like to say what an honor it is for me to be standing in front of all of you here today. And second, I'd really like to say Willalan to Doug Knockwood for his opening prayer this morning. And thank everybody else for being here today as we come together to discuss where we'd like to see Canada in 5 years' time. So a little bit of background around me. I am Mi'kmaq and Irish. I follow my traditional Mi'kmaq beliefs, and I believe in my Aboriginal culture. My grandmother's a very well-respected elder in our communities, and my family ties run very deep. I don't look typically Mi'kmaq. I don't have the dark skin and dark hair that kind of gives it away, or have a local accent that tells people that I'm from the reservation, or that English isn't my first language. I actually stand apart from both of my cultures, and yet I'm fully enveloped in both of them as well. I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, but I came to Canada every summer to spend time with my family. I chose to attend university here and was accepted to Dalhousie School of Nursing, but after a year and a half of school, I was really struggling because, number one, I didn't want to be a nurse, and number two, I became pregnant with my first daughter. So because of my appearance, I had a conscious choice to make when I moved up here from Connecticut. I could either choose to identify myself as Aboriginal, or I could pass myself off as white. I'm very proud of who I am and where my people come from, and I'm proud of our history, and I'm proud of the longevity that we have. But hearing the things that people say about my culture sometimes, and seeing negative things in the news when there's so many good things going on as well, it can be a little disheartening, and it makes it difficult to be proud of who I am sometimes. But what it does do is it inspires me to fight for my identity. And hopefully I can inspire others to have pride in theirs as well. So I'm speaking to you today about stereotypes. Because as we look to the future of Canada, we need to look to the future of our leaders. As community leaders, parents, grandparents, bosses, and teammates, it's our responsibility to watch what we say and how we word things, and we need to be sensitive when we're with others, because we're naturally impacted by what we hear. Excuse me. We do live up to expectations. Studies have shown that when people are presented with negatively coded messages prior to performing tasks, they perform poorly compared to others who receive encouraging and positive messaging or no messaging at all. I first recognized this when I began homeschooling my daughters. They were bullied a lot when they were younger, so I put my career in theater on hold, and I pulled them out of school, and I brought them home with me. And I did this because I recognized that they were really starting to buy into what they were hearing, all those negative messages that they were getting in school. They needed a safe haven to learn. And when they were rewarded with praise and encouraged enough to believe that they could accomplish anything, and realized that asking for help wasn't something to be ashamed of, they really grew in leaps and bounds. I had to help them overcome the negative self-stereotyping because they were creating self-fulfilling prophecies for themselves, and they were achieving very little at that point. I learned that how we prepare our thought processes prior to performance is crucial to our successes. Self-stereotyping is basically creating self-fulfilling prophecies if they're uncorrected. These statements are not only untrue, but they harm a person worse than hurt feelings can sometimes. Because if a person is categorized negatively often enough, they tend to start buying into it and believing in it in themselves. And their thought processes have been preconditioned to achieve less before they even begin. So what do? I had a very good friend and mentor who helped me see beyond my own self-stereotyping and really encouraged me to break down those barriers for myself and overcome the challenges that I was placing in front of my own path of success. I had the support of people who had learned before me to think critically about what they saw around them, and then they taught me to do the same thing. And I now try to do that for others as well. Because it's up to us as responsible, informed adults to do our part with the young people that we encounter and approach them as individuals with individual needs. It's up to us to help them achieve their goals and move forward with their future plans, feeling and proving to society that they are the exception to the stereotypes. The more people that we encourage and break out of the mold to think critically about what they hear and see around them when it has to do with stereotypes, the better and more positive our society will be when we see people as individuals and equals. Reaching out starts with people like us. With encouragement and small goals and some life coaching and mentoring, I've seen young people succeed at their goals and even surpass them. One of my missions is to work with young people, specifically around stereotyping and self-stereotyping. I volunteer with various youth groups, mostly in Aboriginal communities, and most especially here in the city with the off-reserve community. A few years ago, I was introduced to a program called SkillsLink. And SkillsLink works with youth at risk, and it encourages them and provides them with the life skills and work skills necessary to become productive members of society. But what it was lacking was the cultural component. That one piece that, as a prerequisite to some of these programs, which are, a racial component, saying you only need to be Aboriginal in order to become a part of this program, we weren't addressing how that led to being more at risk than somebody who wasn't Aboriginal. The program was delivered to groups of 10 people from a variety of cultures, but treating them all as one group. Minority youth didn't have anybody to identify with, as all the instructors prior to my involvement were Caucasian. The youth that grew up experiencing racial profiling or feeling displaced because they moved to the city from the reserve or from another community, or who were away from their family and other community members, which we do have very close ties to, didn't have anybody who could empathize with them. So rather than paint everybody with the same brush, so to speak, I lobbied to develop a program that was more culturally sensitive, knowing full well that there was a very high level of need here in the city. With the help of one of my managers, Heidi Weigand, who mentored me and became a fantastic friend during my time at St. Mary's University Business Development Center, we worked very diligently on a program and proposal to address these specific cultural needs. We developed the pilot program for the Aboriginal SkillsLink program, and we partnered with the Micmac Native Friendship Center. We updated all of the lesson materials and curriculum to include culturally sensitive materials and also just integrate that cultural component throughout the entire program. Now, during the course of this program, especially at the beginning, I found that several of my students felt as if they didn't belong, as if they were fighting a losing battle and that war was nearly over for some of them. They were overwhelmed by negativity and they were identifying themselves as losers before we even got started. Having overcome some of my own battles with abuse and bicultural racism, homelessness, and PTSD, I felt like I could not only identify with these youth, but teach them how to overcome these types of obstacles and to have some pride in themselves by leading by example. Because we really are our own worst enemies. I'm trying to see if it's up there. Okay. These were some of the statements that the youth were saying when they first came into the course. I will fail because that's what everybody believes about me. I can only work on reserve because they're the only ones who will hire me. I might as well just become a criminal because that's all I ever hear about my culture and race. That's all that's ever in the news. If you had a friend who spoke to you like that on a daily basis, how long would you keep them as your friend? Aboriginal youth, many of them who are from mixed cultures like myself, white, Asian, Black, even other tribes, they had a lot of difficulty getting beyond the negative stereotypes that were surrounding them. So creating a sense of pride in who they are and who they wanted their children to be and in their future became a large component of the program. We looked at the history to see where they came from and what their ancestors had endured, and instilled a sense of pride in the resiliency that they had developed over the years. There was a young lady in my course who was very inspirational to me because she was a visible minority, a single mother, a young lady who struggled with school and dropped out, and then even had trouble figuring out whether she wanted to go back or not. I worked very closely with her during her work term and kept her nearby and provided additional coaching. She learned to set SMART goals for herself, and each task that she accomplished gave her a small sense of pride. That additional coaching led her to apply for university before we finished the work term, and she was accepted before it was completed. She's now going to Dalhousie University and is a student in the social work program. Of those 13 students, 10 of them completed the program, and 2 of them are university. 1 returned to his community to start his own youth hockey league. 3 went on to go to work, and 1 began the culinary program at NSCC. These young people inspired me to step up to my own challenges, and I went back to school because of them to get my certifications in graphic design and in order to be able to start my own business. I got to here today because of people like Heidi and these students and family members who supported and helped me look at the world with a critical eye and realize that I am an individual, and the positive value that I place on my individuality now surpasses any of the negative messaging that I get. Because these young people are the future of our world and not just our country, instilling them with a belief in society is one thing, but really most importantly, we need to instill them with a belief in themselves. As we look forward to 2017, let's focus our attention on the future leaders and make it a more positive one. After all, these are the people who will be taking care of us as we age. They will be leading our country, they will be leading businesses, and they will be the ones who teach others as they get older what they've learned over the years. And in spite of all the bad things that might happen to us in this world, it can truly be a beautiful and diverse place. And it's up to us to make sure that our next generation sees it that way. So let's encourage them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you.